filmsgonewild.com. My name is John Wildman, and we're going to be talking with Daniel Lombroso, who's got two films, not just one, but two films at the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival. We're going to be focusing on one primarily, but the films are American Scar, which has had a wonderful film festival run here, and we're kind of nearing the swan song, right, for that one. But we're going to be focusing for the main part on You'll Be Happier, which I actually just watched this morning. Great early morning viewing. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's, the audience likely has not seen either of these films at this point. So very quickly, let's describe American Scar.
Sure.
So we give it its love.
Great.
All right, so tell us about that.
American Scar is about the environmental impacts of the U.S.-Mexico border wall. People might not realize, but Trump built a lot of wall, over 400 miles, mostly cutting through rural Arizona. In many of these regions, the mountains are a natural barrier, so you don't actually need a border wall. No one is crossing in those regions. And what he did was basically dynamite mountains down to the ground to build a 20 or 30-foot fence. And what that does is sever the ecosystem in half. So up to more than 70 plants and animals are severely threatened by the U.S.-Mexico border wall. And many are basically turning up dead at the fence. And the film tries to, explore that and help people understand what's at stake.
And the one question I did want to ask you about that, because I know, you've had a nice tour with it. Yeah. And oftentimes, when a documentarian is touring with the film, and you're speaking out about it, you're doing Q&As, you kind of become the expert in people's eyes, and you become, kind of like the person who has all the answers for that. What has that process been like for you in this case?
It's interesting. It feels like a lot of responsibility, and really, I feel more like a vessel for the activists who are doing the hard work. I had the luxury of building a really deep relationship with activists on the ground. The most well-known one from the film, and otherwise, is a guy named John Kirk. He's a wedding photographer, a concert photographer. One day he had a day off in Arizona. He drove to the border, saw the wall for the first time. It totally blew his mind. So he dropped all of his work and basically decided to live out of his car and start documenting all the abuses that were happening. And all that we know, all that I know, and all that the world knows really comes from his camera, from his drone imagery, from his photography. And we built a really deep relationship. So he basically said, Daniel, I want you to have my archive and help, use your platform to make other people aware of what's happening. So I really, I owe everything to John, and he's still out there burning his last cash to help people understand what's going on. So I feel really indebted to all of those people that are basically giving their all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now You'll Be Happier.
Let's talk about it.
All right. Again, let's do this again. Tell everybody what You'll Be Happier is about.
You'll Be Happier is about the Brazilian butt lift plastic surgery, which is the most dangerous cosmetic surgery in the world. It's also the fastest growing. It's becoming incredibly popular. And what the film tries to do is track one patient. Her name is Jennifer Aceituno. She worked at ESPN when the film was happening, and it tracks her through her surgery and recovery. It's a very difficult recovery. It's 8 weeks. It's very, very painful, and you have a 1 in 3,000 chance of death. And the film basically asks, why would someone do this procedure? Why would someone risk death and spend so much money? She spends $15,000 on the procedure. Why would someone put their lives on the line for the sake of modifying their appearance? And it tries to be as open-minded as possible in asking that question.
And this is a short doc. It's what, 20-minute runtime?
20 minutes, yeah.
Close to it?
Yeah.
And so it's amazingly economical in yet delivering on a lot of different angles, this process, because, I've had those debates on, plastic surgery, whether or not we need them, how, if is it preying on our insecurities, that kind of thing. And, I've always been in the mind of like going, I'm not going to judge anybody. It's like, I've got like veneers on my teeth, like, it's like, so I can't throw stones at that glass house.
Sure.
But what's great about that, what I loved about it is you taking us for that ride with her, and her narrating so to speak, her story as she goes along is a fascinating process.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we're going with our best friend for her to have surgery. And, we're with her fiance, we're actually sitting with her and her fiance as they're debating and having that tough talk, or those tough talks that we know is just a couple of what I'm sure is many.
Yeah.
How did you connect with her for her to be okay with this?
So intimacy is very important for me in filmmaking. I made a previous film called White Noise that was at Hot Springs, where I spent 4 years with white supremacists. And even though I'm Jewish and my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And when I made that film, it was my goal to make myself invisible, basically. And here, it's the same premise. We talk a lot about plastic surgery. It's becoming way more common than ever before. People don't realize that plastic surgery has gone up 50% just since 2020. So just in the last 2 years, it's exploded. And if you look at the last 10 years, it's exponential growth. What I have never seen is a really intimate character study of one person going through the journey in the operating room and beyond. You meet her sister in the film, her fiance. I spoke to her parents in detail, even though they don't appear. And I basically spent 6 months of my life following her, and we still talk all the time. It was really important for me to do this story, to do it in the most sensitive way possible, to get someone's real trust. So basically the way to do it, the way I went about it, is I realized pretty quickly that you have to approach a plastic surgeon first. Because of HIPAA laws, there's all sorts of restrictions with filming and things like that. So I approached probably a dozen plastic surgeons in New York City, where I live, and said, this procedure, the Brazilian butt lift, is so common, it's becoming really popular. I have no agenda here. I just want to understand, why are all these people getting it? Are you willing to introduce me to some of your patients? And I spoke to a lot of people, and they said, yeah, maybe, but this reservation, I want to see a cut. And for me, as someone with a journalistic background, it's important that I have total independence. Finally, I met Dr. Schulman, who's the doctor in the film, sort of a TikTok celebrity, Instagram celebrity. And we really hit it off. And he said, I have a few patients in particular that I think you really get along with. He introduced me to a few. I met Jennifer. And right away, we bonded. And she said, I feel like people could learn from my story, and I want you to be the one that tells it. So that started basically a year-long journey together.
Now, I love talking about the editing process when we're talking about documentary, especially something like this, because again, it is a tightly made film, and I know that doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
So for you, what was tough to let go of in order to keep this focused on the film that we see?
That's a great question. I think it's really easy to get bogged down in the context of what I was just saying. Like, this is becoming so common. The stigma is lifting. The Brazilian butt lift is dangerous. Most of the coverage on this surgery talks about the danger factor. And earlier cuts was just really hitting home. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. And I realized pretty quickly, like, you just need a little hint of that. That's a small tension in the film. She's not going to die in the procedure. It's almost unethical for me to present the film as something that she could have died from. So I didn't want to frame the film that way. I wanted to frame it around a question, which is, why would someone do this? Not using that danger tension, but more a psychological tension. So once I knew that the film was about intimacy and about one person's journey, it helped me cut all the other stuff. And slowly we chipped away from 30 minutes to 25, down to 20. And in later cuts, we even had cards at the end that said, gave broader context on plastic surgery. And I realized, she says everything. The film says it in a subtle way. So the last move was to cut those and just end the film with her and her fiance sitting on a bench talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about him.
Yeah.
And, because again, it's one thing, for the doctor to go, yeah, and see what I can do, what I do and how this process is.
He says, you'll be happier.
Yeah, he literally says, you'll be happy.
He's squeezing her body and he says, you'll be happier.
Exactly. And then, and it's also easy to kind of see her as a central focus of this, because let's face it, this entire thing is about her central focus on her, and how she deals with that and
preoccupation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not his story, and which it's wonderful to see how he negotiates the conversation with her at the different points, even the couple of points that we see. But getting in this case, a fiance to buy in and go, okay, fine, I'll be on camera, I'll be okay with this. How was that conversation like?
Something I've learned from making films is that when you have buy-in from the main character, the main subject, everything else follows. So Jennifer came to really, respect my process and even admire it, because she's in film too. So we were sort of learning from each other in a strange way. And she started opening doors and said, this is my sister, this is my fiance, here's my mom's phone number, give her a call. To the point that it was just complete access to everything. And she was very comfortable with that. The fiance is such an important character. I would say the most important, because he's really a stand-in for the audience. I, with such a sensitive film around body image, I didn't want to be jumping in as the filmmaker asking questions. You don't hear me one time in the film.
No.
And it was very important for me not to appear judgmental in any way. So her fiance, Ian, is sort of a stand-in for the audience. He's shaking her and saying, Jennifer, why are you doing this? Why? You look beautiful. She's a beautiful girl. And he says, it's enough. When is it going to be enough? And as a filmmaker, especially someone doing verite, which is what that film is, you're always looking for someone who can ask those hard questions that isn't you. Exactly. It's usually me jumping in, and I hate that in the end. So it was a real privilege to have someone like Ian who's there to ask her the hard questions on camera in scenes. And I didn't stage any of that. I mean, I couldn't. The last scene when they're talking about, you think it's finally enough, and then she says, well, now I want to get my boobs done. And he's like, no, you look great. That just happens. And it's all you can ask for as a documentarian, to have those kind of natural moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, I thought it was great. You prepped me that it was definitely something that I was going to be enthralled with. And you're absolutely right. You sold it properly. Again, the film is You'll Be Happier, and also we have to give the shout out to American Star. We've been talking with Daniel Lombroso. Both films are screening at the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival. Daniel, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.